EduTech Guys Radio. Radio.edutechguys.com.
The opinions expressed under the site and its programs are those of participants and not intended to and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any specific educational entity, sponsor, company, state, or government agency.
Hello and welcome to this episode of EduTech Guys Radio, brought to you by Southwest Arkansas Education Cooperative and Hope Public Schools. I'm Dave.
Hey, I'm Jeff Madlock.
And I'm Greg Moore.
Woohoo! Welcome to the show.
And we had no incident.
No, no stumbling.
Well,
no. Jump all over each other. No.
I confused you because I didn't use my last name this time.
Oh yeah.
We got enough episodes under our belt. I don't think we have to do that.
We're on a first name basis.
We're on a first name basis now.
With the listeners. Hey, if you're watching us on Periscope, thanks for joining us. You can drop us a question at EduTechGuys on the good old Twitter. Or you can also hit us up at the Mixler site, mixler.com/EduTechGuys, or radio.edutechguys.com, and the chat window is open. So if you have some questions you'd like to ask us or like us to stop talking or anything else, you can do that with us also.
Bing! The chat window is open.
Also, check out the website at www.edutechguys.com. You can drag yourself down to the bottom of the page and find our comment section. You send us a comment and let us know what's going down. You can also find previous podcasts. Also, check us out on iTunes at the podcast section. Just look up EduTech Guys. You'll find all 20 episodes that are up now. This is our 21st episode, and we're 21. We're legal. We're legal. We're glad to have you here. Today's going to be a fun day on the show. Tell us,
man.
Dave.
Tell us, Dave. Tell us, Dave. We're going to be talking about several different things. There was a survey that was done by Sprint and conducted through a company called Dive Brand Studio, and it's about the state of education technology. So we'll talk a little bit about that survey. We're also going to talk about EduTech conferences in general. Things to look for, think about when you're trying to decide which one you want to go to, or which ones, depending on your school's budget and or your luck of the draw. So a couple things. And then we'll talk about guests, really cool guests that we have coming up over the next month or so, and then places we'll be and whatever else happens to pop into our heads.
Yeah, like once again, if you're out there listening to us or you're watching us on the good old Periscope, please drop us a line. Ask us some questions if you want to know something. If we don't know the answer, we'll act like we do and discuss it.
Lie through our teeth. Discuss it.
We can, or we can Google that for you.
But like Dave said on the show today, we can jump right into it. Conferences. It's really interesting. Used to, it was conferences were mainly like a spring-summer thing, mostly summer. But now it's just year-long. It seems like probably every day there's some kind of conference out there that you can go to.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of different conferences. And the other side of that, or not, maybe not the other side, but an extension of that, I guess, there were, maybe half a dozen, if that many, like big EduTech conferences or just even education conferences in general. And now there are a lot of very specialized conferences that go on during the year. I can't remember if it's happened yet or not. INACOL, I think INACOL may have just happened or it's going to happen.
How do you spell that?
INACOL, and it is the blended. It's all about blended learning, online learning, that type of thing.
Not chopped, not diced, but blended.
No, it's blended.
Blended
that's right.
only.
Frappe,
it's all about blended learning.
Frappe learning. Yes.
I think I remember that one. That one's actually grown pretty huge.
Yeah, and then there are several in January. FETC is coming up, and there was another one that just fell out of my head. I had it, and
I saw it go scattering across the room. It was real ugly.
And FETC's in Florida.
Florida.
That's the Florida Educational Technology Conference.
Yes, but I think they've actually changed the name of it now. The FETC now stands for something else.
One of the big ones, isn't
Off the top of my head, I don't remember, but we could Google that for you.
It's pretty large.
It is large.
Is it the Orange County Convention Center?
It is, yeah. I actually went last year with a group of folks from Texarkana schools. Well, there was a group from Texarkana schools and a couple of folks from Hope schools where you guys are. And we went last year to FETC and I learned a lot of cool things. It's a unique conference.
Unique conference. You have to Sneak up on it?
You neek
Yes,
up on
you
it.
neek up on it.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. We're about to do. It's not funny. We're about to do S1.
Well, it is funny.
That's one of my.
No.
Let's diverge from the topic here. Everyone has the ums or the O's, and then mine says, "That's funny." No,
That's
it's not funny.
Oh,
Not
okay
when
then.
you're talking
I
at a
had
funeral.
no idea where you were going. I was
Yeah.
like, what?
Sorry, our little
Your
our
ums
little-
and your O's.
my ums and my O's. No, this next weekend, Sunday,
Sunday.
at 1:30,
Sunday.
the EduTech guys will be at the Schools Without Walls conference in Hot Springs.
Yeah.
That will be is it at Hot Springs High School?
No, it's at the Hot Springs Convention Center.
It's moved. It's bigger.
Yes.
So it's at the Hot Springs Convention Center. See, I'd have driven to the Hot Springs High School and been sitting in the parking lot. Where's everybody?
Where'd everybody
It's a
go?
really small
Yeah.
convention.
So, that is the Schools Without Walls, SWOW or SWOW or
Yeah.
any other various pronunciations.
We'll be there doing a quick 45-minute. We have an hour. We'll do a 45-minute production of our workshop called, what did I say we're going to call it? What You Wish You Knew?
What you wish you knew.
What you wish you
Not
knew.
what do you know, but what you
Well,
wish you knew.
knew.
So, you should definitely look into that. You can still register, I guess, online.
Yeah, I believe so. What's really cool is that the keynote speaker and featured presenter is Ginger Lumen, who we've had on the show before and is a good friend of ours. And
Yeah.
so
You can
that'll
catch
be
her on
cool.
some of the replays. We've been replaying some of the shows during the day and the evenings so that you can catch them and hear hers. Good stuff. And then in December, we'll be at the AESA conference.
Yeah, no, that's going to be cool. That's probably going to be, well, not probably. That is going to be the biggest conference that we've attended at this point as EduTech guys.
EduTech.
And the conference itself is the 2nd through the 4th or 5th. I can't remember off the top of my head. Through the 5th, I believe. And we will actually be broadcasting the 3rd and 4th live during the whole conference. So we'll pull in presenters and get them to talk about their sessions. We'll pull in participants and get their input on what they're going to see or what they just saw or what they've learned, what they've seen, what they've what they like about the conference.
Yeah.
That type of thing. And then just really it'll give us a chance to also talk about different breakout sessions and other things that are happening at the conference as a way to inform those folks who are there or those folks who aren't there but wish they were. And that's in New Orleans. So that'll be December 2nd through the 4th down there. The AESA, that's the Association for Education Service Agencies.
Yeah, here in a few weeks, there'll be a page up on the website just for that conference.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll have more information about some of the folks that we'll be interviewing and things like that, so you'll be able to check it. Definitely by the day of, you'll be able to check on the website and see who's going to be on the show and what's going to be going down. So
I think
definitely
that'll
want to
be
check
cool.
that out.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Definitely want to check that out.
And then another cool one is in March. Now, we're looking down the road. March 4th through the 7th is the Arkansas Rock City Regional Contest of the first FIRST robotics program at the Arkansas State Fairgrounds in Barton Coliseum. And that's going to be cool. That's a bunch of students who work in teams, and they compete with and against each other to solve whatever problem is presented to them. So that's going to be very cool. That's going to be cool.
Robot Wars.
Yay.
I've been thinking about buying a bunch of those small droids just to fly out into the action, and stir it up a little bit.
Yep.
Get a
I believe it's going to be a lot like the Mos Eisley Cantina. No droids allowed.
So talking about conferences, that's a really big deal. We go to conferences, and I'll say it's hard to choose a good conference. Choosing a good conference, you really got to do your homework on it. You might use a product, or you might use a certain teaching platform, and you find out about their conference, and you go, "Hey, I got to go to this conference." Well, in all seriousness, I think most conferences like that are probably more geared to early adopters or users, new users, and prospective users. I think that's, when you kind of agree that, some of the stuff you go to, especially if it's sponsored by something, you're going to get a lot of sales pitches, and you're going to get a lot of, this is how you do the most basic, thing that's going on. I think the conferences that are a little more in-depth, would be conferences like the Hot Springs Technology, Institute, and
Sure.
SWOW, Students Without Walls, Schools Without Walls, Students Without Wallets. We're taking all their wallets from them. But I think that's the big deal to me, is that finding the right one so that you get the right workshops. And I think the big deal that I guess we could talk about is right now in the state of Arkansas, a pretty what's the guy? I'm trying to think of his name. Anyway, we have a tech in the state of Arkansas that's starting a new tech conference.
Oh yeah.
And it's he's actually gearing it more towards tech coordinators and more of the techie side of education. And I think that's something that you can get lost in what you're looking for.
Right.
Because we go to a lot of workshops and we expect it to be techie, and it's more along the
service level,
the educational level, integrating it and using it in the classroom. And I think sometimes that happens to teachers. They sign up for a workshop and they show up and they go, I don't know anything about an SQL server, and I don't want to know about any databases
that aren't anything related to education acronyms.
So, but I think that's a big one, and I think that making them shorter. The long ones,
I don't know. I think that one's probably depends on whether or not it's like a surface level thing, or if it's an in-depth discussion and exploration of a subject. Because some of the sessions we've been to at various conferences, it's like, okay, they're dragging this out a really long time, and they should have had like half the amount of time just to keep the pace right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then other ones you go to and it's like, this is such a deep topic, and I'm only skimming the very surface of it, and there's no meat to this. It's just like, and this is a thing, and this is a thing, and this is a thing, and this is a thing.
Right.
We don't have enough time to go into them.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that should be more variable. I think that's something that related probably to the scheduling side of conferences. They probably just you have a block of an hour, fill it with something, rather than being flexible. Like, okay, we've got a half-hour block or an hour-long block or an hour and a half block. I think
logistics play a huge part in
that. Oh,
that
yeah,
too.
just getting people to and from.
One of our last ones was, a logistics.
Yes.
Definitely defined what, when, why, and where.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Because of the actual lack of rooms, and space and the amount of people that were at that.
Well, and then along the same lines, you can go overboard in the other direction. And I'll give you an example. When I went to FETSI last year or the year before, whenever I went to FETSI, it was the scheduling was a little bit of a problem because they had the hour-long breakout sessions, but at the same time they had like these little 15-minute or 30-minute sort of slams. Here's 15 minutes and we're going to show you some quick, CSS tips or some quick, whatever they were doing, but they were all happening at the same time. And then while that is going on, they also have poster sessions where you have students presenting their particular tech project. And then you also have extended workshops that were not like half day, but maybe they were 90 minutes or 2 hours.
Right.
Again, all scheduled at the same time. So then it becomes a logistics nightmare for the
I wanna go
attendee
here, I
because,
wanna go there.
I really want to go to this, but I
Right.
want to be in the hour-long session that I originally had planned to go to.
Right.
But now there's this other one, and I have this other one, and of course things are generally only offered once, so
Right.
you only have one shot to try to get what you're, where
I
you're
think-
going.
I think part of that can be alleviated. The way the JNUC took care of that was the fact that they recorded all of their sessions. So if you missed a
Right.
session, you could catch it later on YouTube. So at that point, you go to the session that you want to ask questions on, or like if you're going with someone else, you want to discuss the session with them. Those are the ones that you pick, and I think that's with the way we've got cameras everywhere these days, and the fact that you can just stream video of anything. The fact that you can just record the sessions and view them later on YouTube or whatever, I think solves a lot of that problem. Plus, again, I think I would personally, anyway, I'd prefer having too much to pick from, because it's like, oh my gosh, look at all this amazing stuff, and
True.
have like to sit around for an hour. It's like, oh gosh, I got to wait for this session that's going on later in the day. I have nowhere else to go. I'm just sort of sitting here twiddling my thumbs.
Right. Now, I will say that part of the problem, and I think this holds true with any conference, really. You get the title, and if you're lucky, you get a one or two sentence, kind of an overview
Description.
synopsis,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And then some conferences, they give you the full description.
Right.
Other ones, that's all you get is 2 lines.
It's like a teaser.
I don't know in 2 lines that this is what I want to do. So I go there thinking this is
about
the, you know,
such and such.
oh yeah, this is the session I want. And it turns out,
No.
no, this is not what I had in mind.
Yeah, they talk
at
about
all.
logging in for 20 minutes.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Not and then they've got stuff where if they rank the sessions on like beginning, intermediate, or advanced, I don't think anybody's like peer reviewing that. So it's like whoever was presenting the session thinks it's intermediate, beginner, or advanced.
Right.
And depending on whether they are intermediate, beginner, or advanced, it's like, oh yeah, this is super easy. This is just writing a program in Python from scratch, you know. You know, so yeah.
Right. Well, and then you also have and then you also have the opposite, right? So you have somebody who is doing something advanced, but they call it beginner, and then you have other folks who they think what they're presenting is, you know, just the most complex, complicated thing in the world,
Right.
and it turns out
like
that
super
essentially
easy.
it kind of goes back to what you were talking about, Greg. You know, essentially they could have done it in 6 minutes and said,
Right.
"Oh yeah, by the way, here it is," and everybody goes, "Oh yeah, okay, we got that." You know,
Like,
I
yeah,
guess
and
tap dance for the rest of your time.
Right.
Instead, they take the hour to describe something that really
and then you click
didn't
here,
need an hour.
and then you click here, and
Well,
then you
that's-
click here, and then you click here.
You know, I've always thought that it would be cool if when you were preparing to go to a conference and they posted their schedule of sessions or workshops, that they required the presenters to post an outline, you know, or a full syllabus of
Right,
this is
exactly.
what we're going to discuss
That would be
in
cool.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that would a lot more people would go, yeah, I can really get a hold of this. This is
Right.
what I'm looking
Right.
to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Because-
also, in defense of that, is that, you know, when you're 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, a month out, and you get that schedule of presenters, Google them.
Yes.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Reach out to that person on Twitter or
Sure.
through email and say, hey, what's your workshop going to be over? I'm trying to decide, I'm interested in this that you're discussing. Are you
Right.
discussing this?
Right.
Are you going to go in
To
depth
what
with that?
depth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
That's a great idea.
That's, you know, I mean, it's crazy, but, you know, Google it. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
find
Plus,
out what they're
half the
who
time,
they are.
if they're talking about anything related to technology, they present like, okay, here's the link you can click, and it's little teeny tiny letters up on the screen. Okay, make sure to write that down real quick, and next slide.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so if you had like a kit or whatever going
Right.
into it, where it had all the links all the software that they're going to reference, any of the websites they were going to reference, any of the services.
You know, I think it's interesting, and that brings us to an interesting part of teaching. And because when you're doing a session, you're teaching in an encapsulated, quick moment of time.
Right.
And so it's really interesting to think that I've always felt like if you could prep your students, if you went, you know, and that's kind of what some college courses do. You get the syllabus, and it says this week you're going to read this, and this week you're going to
Sure.
read that.
Right. So if you want to read ahead,
you can be ahead weeks at a time.
Right. Right.
And I've always felt like that a lot of teachers and a lot of presenters don't want to give you too much, because then how am I going to waste the rest of that time? I mean, it's like I've got to present this to them so I can eat up time. Well, but maybe that's not what you want to do.
Right.
To make the, you know, and I agree with Greg. If you got that syllabus beforehand, that outline, and you got the presentation material,
right.
that you could already have, and go, okay, here's the links, and you've already prepped yourself with your laptop or your device so that you can go directly to those links as they're talking about it.
Right.
Then I think most presenters would be excited at the end for discussion. Or maybe then at that time they could go, since I've already given them all this, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes after each topic to open for quick discussion on that topic before I move on to the next
Right.
subtopic.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And I think you would find that, and I hate to use this word, but I'm going to anyway. Good presenters, I believe, would be open to that. That is, those folks who their handouts, yes, it might be, you know, it's a Prezi link or it's a PowerPoint slideshow,
Right.
okay? Again, you know, and just get this out. There's nothing wrong with PowerPoint,
No.
all right, if it's handled correctly. So if you have someone who handles it correctly, that is, they kind of stick to that whole rule of sixes, you know, and they've got no more than 6 words per line, no more than
Right.
6 bullets per slide for those who
Right.
aren't familiar with the rule of sixes. And that's what they send you, then they have nothing, or should have nothing, to worry about, because I'm giving you basically the outline, the notes. Yeah, here's my slides. Have at it.
Right.
You know, if anything, I would like to have the slides ahead of time so I can make those little notes and go, oh, I need to know more about this.
Right.
And then, again, if it's a good presenter,
Right.
they're going to cover those things anyway. And so my questions get answered as they're presenting, and at the end I go, oh, this is awesome, and I don't have any questions, or I do have questions, but it's based on what I now learned versus
what I had
someone
going into
who types out everything in a PowerPoint slide so that when they give it to you, that's the presentation.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that's not going to help.
We get that a lot too, don't we?
We do. And you get that a lot. Frankly, you get that a lot, whether it's a conference, whether it's some other kind of professional development training. Students get it from all kinds of teachers. That's what they hand them. Here's my PowerPoint slides after the fact of all the notes I ever had. Just give me the highlights and let me take the notes.
Right, exactly.
It would be fun to build a conference like that.
It would, yeah.
And we've never built a conference, I guess. So we don't know the other logistical and other nightmares that come with building a conference.
It's very easy to point out all the flaws. Yeah. It's like, oh, look at all these things you're doing wrong. Then, oh, wait, this is actually really hard.
I can tell you from
I
can tell you from being at the Education Service Center level.
Yeah, you guys do that a lot.
We do. We do some conferences type thing, but we do a lot of PD. And I will tell you that the biggest problem that we have is the population, right? The group of attendees who comes to any given workshop, their experience level is all over the charts.
Right.
So as a presenter, now theoretically, as a presenter, I could say this is super highly advanced. You have to know X, Y, and Z before you walk in the door, and that's all well and good. But that doesn't guarantee that the people walking in the door know X, Y, and Z. They're still back at A.
Or they might think they know X, Y, and Z, and they don't.
Exactly. And so I realized that is definitely an issue. I mean, I can't imagine how that would come into play for a whole conference, let alone the one or the PD that we do that's basically one-offs.
And that's another place where the where a good PowerPoint presentation can come in, because if you go, okay, learn more about this, you can put a link or whatever. Like if you don't know what. If you're covering a topic and it's got a big amount of background, you can actually just leave a link in the PowerPoint. For more information related to blah, click this link. And then that way, before you go into the conference, you can research and go, okay, I'm a little shaky on this particular topic.
Right.
Let me research a little more in depth.
Yeah.
And then again, depending on, now specific to conferences, generally, in my experience, the sessions you go to at a conference are not necessarily teaching sessions. Now, some of them are, and by teaching, I mean the attendees do not necessarily attend for the purpose of learning learning that particular skill, mainly because you're generally in a conference setting, you're there for an hour at most, usually 45 minutes before they're kicking you out for the next people have to come in. So at that point, we're sideways on. That's interesting. Sorry, I got distracted. There it is. The Periscope screen went sideways on me.
If you're watching us on Periscope, sorry, my phone. I got a phone call and it dropped Periscope.
Whoa. So I think that definitely comes into play. That you don't necessarily expect to actually walk away with learning a particular skill. Right. Exactly.
It's an introduction. It's like, hey, here's this cool thing. Here's this problems it can solve. If that looks cool, here's where you can go find it.
Exactly. And I'll tell you what drives me really crazy about conferences and conference sessions. You see the title, and it looks like something that piques your interest. And then you read the little blurb, and you say, okay, yeah, I think that's good. And this is going to be put on by such and such teacher from such and such school district or whatever. And you go, and when you sit in there, yes, that teacher is in the room. And yes, they are standing at the front, but the actual presenter is the vendor of the software or service that they actually implemented. So it's not really how that teacher is using it. Although I will say I have been to many sessions where that is exactly. The person gets up and they say, this is how our district uses X product. But for all intents and purposes, it's a commercial for X product, and that drives me nuts. There should be, I'm sorry, that should be some kind of a universal disclaimer that says,
sponsored by
the vendor will be in the room for this. That way, I can look at it and go, no, or I can look at it and go, yes, I would like to talk to that vendor or see what that vendor offers. Rarely, though, is that the case. And sometimes, the vendor is listed as one of the people, but it's, tiny little print, and
Right.
you have to get out your decoder ring to figure out exactly if that's what it says.
Right, exactly.
So that's one of my big peeves with certain conference sessions.
Right. Another thing I think that I would personally like to see is you're talking about how most conferences, if it's a good presentation, it's covering the what and, what it does, what it can do for you. It doesn't really cover how. I would love to go to a conference where they gave a big, they gave a presentation for the what, followed by, if you found that interesting, go to this other session for a breakout for how.
Yes.
So then you can sit down, you can implement it yourself. Okay, let's work through it. Here's the demo. Here's where you can log in.
Yeah.
So
That'd be really cool.
Now, I will say that was one of the cool things about some of the sessions at FETC, and I think they even had similar breakouts at iNACOL. In that you could attend a session like that, and then they had sort of these little mini sessions that were kind of going on every 20 minutes, either at their particular vendor booth or at a different place in the venue where that was kind of set aside for that sort of thing. So you could get an overview and then go see hands-on
implementation,
and again, not in depth.
Right, exactly.
It was still more. It was still an overview, but it was a hands-on overview.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things that kills me whenever I'm researching software, which is sort of related. You go to the website and it tells you all these big buzzwords and all the fancy things that it can do, and they never show you the interface.
Yes.
Just show me what it looks like.
Right.
I can gather a lot just by looking at the interface.
Yes,
just show me what
exactly.
it looks like.
Yes.
I think that would be
and-
highly beneficial.
Yes, that and pricing.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
always.
Do not, and I realize that especially in a conference setting, in fact, in most conference settings, the breakout sessions, the vendors are not allowed to make a sales pitch.
Right.
Even though they're the ones presenting this one particular piece of software or
And
this one
sponsoring the
particular
majority
service.
of the conference.
Right,
Yeah, exactly. they can't actually sell you anything in the session.
Right.
Yeah, right, okay. But
They're doing everything
that's one of
but.
the things that drives me crazy. Especially, okay, so they can't do it in the session.
Right.
Right. So then you go to the vendor section on the floor. And even sometimes then they will not give you pricing. We'll have to calculate the number of students.
Right. And okay, look, we understand that sometimes you've got a very complicated pricing model where it's based, you've got breakover points where if you have X number of students or licenses or whatever, and they've also got, site licensing versus user licensing versus instance licensing. And it's like, just give me a breakdown on a piece of paper. Let me look at
price.
it. Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It's not hard.
I totally missed what happened there, by the way. I don't
Oh,
know.
we were just doing something Greg said.
Okay. I missed it, so man.
Hey, you're listening to radio.edutechguys.com. I know we're a little long-winded, but we like to talk about stuff. Hey, if you get a chance, drop by the website, www.edutechguys.com. Take a look around. There are lots of blog articles, past podcasts, and actually a Periscope feed from our last Periscope show. We kind of keep it
Nice.
up on the website. You can also check us out on iTunes. Check us out on iTunes and find out what's going on. Listen to all 20 episodes of the EduTech Guys. Hey, sorry, just want to do a quick drop in right there.
Yeah.
Hey, tell us about, so I noticed on the topics list, David is really good about populating the show notes for us, so we have something to discuss when we don't have guests, which we'll get to in just a bit. We're going to, starting next week, we are just
Slammed.
bombarded with guests, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah,
if you'd like to
indeed,
be a guest
absolutely.
on the show and you're listening to us and you're in the EdTech industry, education or tech or both, just let us know. Go to the website, go to the bottom, and send us an email. Yeah, so tell us about this. It was the State of EdTech survey. Was that what it was actually called?
Yeah, that's what it's called, the State of EdTech. And this was done through a partnership with Sprint and Dive Brand Studio. I will tell you, I didn't know anything about Dive Brand Studio
never
before
heard of
this.
Dive Brand Studio.
Yes, Dive Brand. And so I went out and Googled them.
Right.
And once I figured out, now the other part of this, I would just tell you straight up. When you look at the survey, there's a logo that just says D-Brand. I had no idea what to go with, so I just grabbed the logo and did a reverse image search so
that's
that
so
I could
handy.
figure out who is this.
That's so handy.
So it turns out that Dive Brand actually works with many partners in order to conduct surveys, and most of the surveys are education and or technology based. So there is that. Now, so they conducted this survey, and they surveyed a group of folks, and one of the problems that I have, I'm going to start with the ugly, okay, and then we'll get to the good and the bad.
Right.
The ugly for me in this survey, it does not say where this population comes from.
Right.
All right. So we are told I think it's in one of the first paragraphs there in the survey, and I cannot give you a link to the survey because you actually have to sign in to sign up for this survey. You know, it's one of those things. Sprint gets to bug you forever after you sign up. But what I may be able to do is maybe I can provide the link to that link. Mm-hmm. We can do that. I'll do that. All right. So anyway, they surveyed 173 district officials, principals, and teachers. All right. 173. Now, we were talking before. I was just going to say, we were talking about this off air right before we came on. That is less than half the number of equivalently employed folks at Hope Public School District.
Right, yeah.
So essentially, they interviewed half of your staff.
Now,
it's not your staff.
Right, exactly.
I'm just saying, comparatively speaking.
I wish that they had given number of districts.
Yes,
because that would have been a very useful metric to have.
Right, exactly, yeah. Are you talking 173 of these folks spread over 10 districts, 20 districts,
40,
1,
exactly.
You know. And I will say from a consumer perspective and from someone, frankly, who tends to be skeptical about things, I look more at the sins of omission,
right?
Almost more than the things you are telling me. What are you not telling me?
Right.
Well, you're not telling me how many districts. You're not telling me, how many of each of these folks.
Right. Exactly.
So that's I'm
where
worried
were
about
they
that.
at?
But having said all that, let's get to the conversation at hand. They asked a whole lot of different questions. One of the questions was, what are some of the biggest hurdles in terms of incorporating educational technology in the school, in the classroom? 75% of the respondents said that budget limits were the main concern.
Which is, I'm pretty sure you could make any survey about anything that included a question about budget, and it would always be the top concern.
That's right.
Money solves everything, or at least so we seem to think.
Or there's not enough of it to make everything go round.
Right.
There's not.
Then I thought it was interesting that the next highest issue, 54%, said that inadequate teacher training is the next biggest hurdle. That is, they just didn't feel that the teachers were trained enough on the technology in order to take that technology and leverage it in the classroom. Right. And part of that is that part of it. It's not necessarily the technology piece.
Right.
It's the how do I use this in my classroom?
Right.
Yeah, thanks for teaching me Twitter. Thanks for teaching me podcasting. Thanks for teaching me whatever. That's great. What am I supposed to do with this?
Right, exactly. Or if, just maybe they didn't even get Twitter, or they just got, okay, this is your iPad. You click these buttons to turn it on. You click these buttons to turn it off. Okay, have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
Yeah, right. So how do I use the technology? Period. And then how do I use it in my class?
Right, exactly.
So that was 54% of the folks there. And then I thought it was very interesting. To me, this is very telling that these respondents, 41% said that teachers, the biggest hurdle they face is that teachers are resistant to the change. Period.
That's interesting. I would also, another one of those sins of omissions, they don't tell you how many of those 173 are officials and how many are teachers and how many, so which way is this bias? Which way is this swamp?
Right, yeah. Who's saying this?
Right, exactly.
But I thought that was very, very telling, really. I mean, you're talking about almost half of the respondents, no matter what that makeup happens to be, still almost half of them say that one of the biggest hurdles is that teachers are resistant to the change, period.
Right.
And we've talked about that in previous shows with various guests that that is one of the biggest hurdles, is that you have a group of teachers who they like the way things have been going, and I don't want to change. I've been doing the same thing for 25 years.
I think part of that comes from the fact that often whenever a new thing, I don't care if it's technology, I don't care if it's, some new way of teaching, it's often not pitched to the teachers. It's often pitched to the administration, to the tech guys. And so then the tech guys or the administration get sold on. I go, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Let's roll it out. And then teachers are like, when did we get to have a say in this?
Right.
So especially whenever so much of that comes right down to the classroom, where it's like, okay, yeah, we on the tech guy side, we install some software and we click some buttons and we're done in like a day. And then from there, it's like, okay, now for the rest of the year, you guys implement this.
Right.
So
Yes.
the fact that the ones who actually have to deal with this stuff on a daily, ongoing basis are the ones who have some of the least say. Aside from students, they have obviously the very least amount of say in the whole shebang. But I think that oftentimes we lose that sort of PR, where I think we should be, after a tech person or an administrator is sold on something, it should be brought before a group of teachers to sell them on it. Okay, does this solve your problems? Does this look like it will actually work for us here? What's your opinion on it? Now, I mean, granted, this is not a democracy. We don't put everything to a vote, but at the same time, like I said, whenever there's so much of it is in the classroom implementation, throughout the year, I think we don't sell to the teachers enough. And at that point, you feel like you're getting stuff forced down your throat.
Well, and to that end, sometimes it's out of certain aspects of control. There are some things that happen that, they get forced down the teacher's throat. They get forced down the tech guy's throat. They get forced down the superintendent's throat from a higher power, saying, "Hey, this, thou shalt do this.
This is the way."
I think when it comes to those kinds of things, and where resistance to change, really where that rubber hits the road, is buy-in and even just information.
Absolutely.
This is going to happen. Okay, we are going to change to X, and here is why we're changing to X, and not only why, but here's how we're going to help you change to X. So, I think those kinds of things, I really do. I think the resistance to change a lot of time is not knowing.
Yes.
Right. So I don't know what it is that I'm going to be changing to.
Right.
I don't know the why. Why are we changing to this?
How
is this now going to help me?
All I see is, oh, great, now I got to relearn everything all over again.
Exactly.
For the umpteenth time.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you just changed X, and I had to learn X, and now we're changing X again to Y, and I don't know why we're changing it to Y.
Why are we changing to Y? Who's on first?
So so I think that's a big part of the culture of change.
Yes.
You've got to help people understand why it is we're changing. We're not changing for the sake of change.
Give them a decision, a chance to come up with their own, like you said, with buy-in. Just give them a chance to see. Okay, this is our reasoning. We put a lot of thought into it.
Right.
Or maybe we didn't. Maybe it's getting forced down our throats too.
Exactly. So. Or maybe somebody somewhere just decided this is how it's going to be. I mean, you look at various. I look at it from say a software level, and how many times have we has a new version of a particular piece of software that allows you to say, I don't know, write documents, been changed without any explanation whatsoever as to why all of a sudden, why did you have to move the italics button? Who cares?
Exactly.
But now it's not where it has been for the last 20 years.
Right, exactly.
You've moved it. I can't find my cheese.
Right, exactly.
So I think a lot of that comes. I think a lot of that comes into play when it comes to change and resistance to change.
Yeah.
So beating that particular topic to death.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The next thing though is I find it interesting that just as 41% are resistant to change, it turns out that 41%, and again, we can presume this is not the same 41%, but 41% of the respondents said that they believe there is no plan for how teachers can use technology in the classroom for lessons and curriculum.
Right.
So half the people surveyed say there is no plan. We want a plan.
Right. Exactly. And I think part of that is whenever sometimes you don't want to have a complete concrete plan, because especially if you're the one designing the plan and you're not going to be the one implementing the plan. I think that's one of the worst decisions that can ever be made. It just in general. Right. If you aren't the one who's going to implement it, don't be the one whose sole person is in charge of designing the plan.
Right.
Because you do not have a complete picture. You just never will. So I think part of that is, people will say, well, I don't know what they want. Well, okay, that's great and everything, but you still need a plan. So bring them in before you roll it out and say, okay, how do we build this? What are your concerns? What are the needs? How does this solve them? Does this solve them? Here's what I think, from my perspective, like, okay, here's what the equipment can do. Can you put that in place?
The one key thing to this, though, is finding someone that understands
The bridge.
strategic planning.
Right, exactly.
Because that's what we're talking about is making sure we're creating the procedures that are going to be, and I think that might be the biggest breakdown. And I noticed the very next one. 71% said there should be a department expressly devoted to classroom technology.
Amen.
And if anybody's been preaching that in my district, you guys know I've been preaching for. You're talking about integration of a curriculum, technology curriculum specialist.
Right.
Someone that can come in and go, because we were talking about this last night and we discuss this all the time. The main problem is not how do I use it. It's how do I integrate it into my classroom?
Right, exactly. Not what does this button do,
Yeah.
but when do I push it?
Yeah.
Why do I want to push
I'll
this button?
figure that
Right.
out. Yeah,
Right.
that's the thing is that if we could tell them, no, you need a line for this, then they would build the moat and put the whole cage in. But I'm just saying, no, but that's it. If we could convince them that this is what you can use for in your classroom and it's going to be great, they're going to click the buttons and they're going to figure it out. Or they're going to ask the right questions
Right.
to the right people and say, great, how do I make this bad boy work?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I love the next one down there. It's
and I threw that in there on purpose. Now, I would tell you that the paper that I downloaded and we'll provide the link out to how you can get it. Has all kinds of information in there. I mean, there's all kinds of stats and whatever. But this one jumped out at me because of what the entire nation went through last year in terms of standardized testing.
Hey.
And nearly 42% of the respondents said that the technology was sufficient for computerized testing last year.
But
13% said that they disagreed or strongly disagreed that the technology was sufficient for their standardized testing. So
Right.
you have almost half saying, "Oh yeah, it was awesome, everything went great,"
And
but
then a
you've got
voiceful minority going, wait, what
right,
are you talking
exactly.
about?
Oh, hey, wait a minute here.
we know what that is. What it really comes down to is a school. Most schools can't provide one-to-one. And so the reason that I would guess, the main reason, really did not have to do with the technology being sufficient. I think it had to be with the technology being plentiful enough. I want to say that for most teachers, it was like, see, in the old days, we gave out all the pencils and paper and everybody tested at the same time. But our school only has said number of computers, so we have to break
Cycle
this
them
up.
through the labs
And so now we're getting into classroom time and education time, and hence their problem with, I would believe that that's why we're getting the answer that we're getting, because most of the stuff that we all heard of was we didn't have enough computers, or we were having to cycle through and roll a cart into a classroom with laptops and things like that.
Right.
It's not that it necessarily didn't work, although there were some hiccups and some caveats to that.
Anytime this was like the first year that we had such a huge push for. So anytime you put a system through a new ringer like that, there's always going to be a handful of bugs.
Exactly.
There's no way you can possibly predict it all. Even though, those of us who know us will say that we are sparing with our praise of this particular company, but we did get a fair amount of ability to pre-test. Leading into it, and I think that was very helpful.
The prep was there.
The prep was there. It was at least possible. We at least got our hands on the app before it was.
But with anything in schools, when you interject something that's not routine, then it actually causes another level of trouble for us or anyone else dealing with it. Luckily, most schools and states won't change their testing procedures every year.
Most
won't.
Most.
Some won't.
So there won't be anything new to learn.
There'll be a couple that won't.
Hey, so the last part, when asked which educational technology were most beneficial to teaching and student learning, 62% said laptops, 55% said interactive whiteboards, and 50% said tablets.
I find that really interesting. We were talking about this before the show, and the fact that interactive whiteboards jumped right up there in the middle with 55% of the respondents.
I don't think they meant interactive whiteboards. I think they meant projection. I think they meant presentation.
Right, exactly.
And that's just my guess. Now, I do believe that K through 3, interactive devices like that can be completely used and beautiful in a classroom.
Absolutely.
So, if these 173 teachers and people, if 70 of them were K through 3 teachers that had interactive boards and were using them so students could write their ABCs and colors and things on the board,
to
then
actually
I could see
use
that.
it as an interactive whiteboard, I'm standing at the front of the class and I'm drawing on stuff.
Right.
Actually have engagement with the students where they're using the whiteboard.
And now remember, these are not students that they surveyed.
Right, exactly.
No, well, that's what I was just going to throw in there. Remember, not only are these not students, but this is a total of 173 people who responded.
Right.
And we don't know the makeup of those folks in terms of their position, of the demographics, any of that stuff. So,
yeah, exactly.
What kind of results would you probably get had they just done Hope Public Schools?
Right.
Right. So is this? I don't know. That's one of the big things I wanted to kind of bring out of this, I guess.
Right.
Do we really think this is representative of the nation as a whole? Do we? Is that a varied / large enough sample group to say, yeah, this represents. Okay, we think this represents.
No,
I don't.
No.
I mean,
I think if it had said 173 districts,
yeah,
now we would have.
Yeah, exactly.
And they would have said, and here's the thing: you could have told me the districts.
Right.
If you said 173 districts, and these are the districts that we did. No, we're not still getting into who, but wow, 173 districts, and these are the ones, and now we've got these numbers.
Right.
Well, now we're talking, especially if it was just like you went and threw some tacks at a map and went, these are the places we're going to hit.
Right,
Great,
right.
that's beautiful.
Now, having said that, though, okay, so for the sake of argument, let's say it is 173 districts. Well, this says there were 173 respondents. So now you're saying one person
teacher,
from each of those
right,
districts.
Exactly, yeah. Very, very opinionated.
Then it's very opinionated. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Now,
So,
if they said it was 72,000 people surveyed.
Exactly.
Educators, which, and it's funny, we talk about that all the time. Our market in EdTech is a small market.
Sure.
Educators are not a large market of the population. They just really aren't. I mean, there's a lot of us out there, and you don't want to tick us off. Last thing you want is a bunch of ticked off third graders or third grade teachers on your tail. You'd be in trouble, buddy. But yeah, that's you're right. It would be interesting to see that. Hey, you're listening to radio.edutechguys.com. We're coming to you live from the Southwest Arkansas Educational Co-op in Hope, Arkansas. I want to thank them and Hope Public Schools for letting us do this each week and bring you some great information. We're going to take a quick break. Listen to one of our good buddies, Kevin.
Oh,
Kevin Honeycutt.
Okay.
Kevin Honeycutt. We haven't heard this song in a while. It's I Need My Teachers to Learn. And a little quick announcement for the AESA conference coming up.
Cool.
If you can get to it, if you're listening to us and you're at a cooperative or an educational service center in the United States, you should probably want to go to that place. I don't know if they still even have registration. But
I believe you can still register and go.
But yeah, we're going to take a quick listen, and we'll be right back with some more EdTech Guys right after this.
Yay.
In the 27th row of her college class, she was working real hard, trying to pass. She studied all night for the test she took, but she couldn't use the notes on her own MacBook. He told him that note cards were the things they needed, and he wouldn't change his mind, though she begged and pleaded. The dark red F was no surprise as the tears formed in her eyes. She said, kids are changing, any fool can tell, and the ways that you teach them have to change as well. You might not like it 'cause we grow up fast, but prepare us for the future and not your past. There's not 1 minute to burn. I need my teachers to learn. In detention hall, there's a quiet young man with his head hung low, phone in his hand. He's asking his dad to feed his dog, 'cause he tried to post a story on his own blog. He was hoping that people would read his words, 'cause an audience of one seemed a bit absurd. Whatever happened to compromise? He said the school should realize. Kids are changing, any fool can tell, and the ways that you're teaching have to change as well. You might not like it 'cause they grow up fast, but prepare them for the future, not your past. There's not 1 minute to burn. They need their teachers to learn. In a 3rd grade room in a tiny town, there's a blue-eyed girl who's feeling down. She tried to bring her daddy to show and tell that he was gonna Skype them and wish them well. She showed him all the camera on her mom's netbook, but they wouldn't let her do it on a school network. The man in camo never called. He was blocked by a firewall. Things are changing, any fool can tell, and the ways that you're teaching have to change as well. You might not like it 'cause they grow up fast, but prepare them for the future and not your past. There's not 1 minute to burn. They need their teachers to learn. They need their teachers to learn.
Join EduTechGuys live from the 30th Annual AESA Conference in New Orleans, December 2nd through the 5th. We'll be providing day-by-day coverage as we talk with presenters, attendees, and members of education service agencies from around the nation. Get rid of the noise and listen to the music with EduTechGuys Live, December 2nd through the 5th. Brought to you by Southwest Arkansas Education Cooperative, Hope Public Schools, and the Association of Education Service Agencies.
Small town, nothing to do. Time stands still, sometime I'm blue. A one-lane road that leads nowhere. Trying to get out just as fast as I can, 'cause you ain't ever been nowhere till you've been to my town. Two blinking lights, a one-horse town. And can't keep a secret to save a life. The price you pay when rumors fly, and that's what they say. An eye for an eye, 'cause you ain't ever been nowhere till you've been to my town. Someday I'm gonna break away and leave. Gonna find a way to stand on my 2 feet.
Hey, you're listening to radio.edutechguys.com. Hey, we're coming back with the gang in the studio here. We just had, it's a beautiful studio, we just had it remodeled. If you're watching us on Periscope, listen to us on radio.edutechguys.com. Hey, David has some dates he wants to shed.
Well, what we were going to tell you was that was
that was Shane Howard.
Yes.
I'm sorry. That was Kevin Honeycutt with his "I Need My Teachers to Learn," and then a Shane Howard band with My Town. Both of those guys have a group called Tweetwood Mac. You can see them, listen to them, watch them, see them, all this good stuff. YouTube has them out there. Tweetwoodmac.com. We just posted that on the old Twitter, so if you want to check out the link there.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So tell us who's going to be on the show, David.
All right, so this is awesome. We've got a
upcoming guest.
I use that word a lot, and I don't necessarily mean to, but anyway, we've got a bunch of cool guests coming up over the next month or so, and so next week we've got Daisy Dyer-Dewar, and she is the winner, a former winner, or I don't know how that works. Anyway, she is an NASSP, National Association of Secondary School Principal, Digital Principal Award winner.
Wow.
Awesome.
I can see why they didn't put that in one acronym. It's just like,
yes, she is the founder of the hashtag ArcEdChat that happens every Thursday at 8 p.m. Central Time. A former principal and an EduTech leader, and she will be here on air with us next week. Then on November 18th, we're going to have Susan Gilly, who is a Google Apps expert, hard for me to say, certified trainer and general Google Apps guru.
Google guru.
It is, yes, Google guru. What he said, because I can't. So
this section of the show brought to you by Tongue Twisters.
Yes. After that, November 25th, that's going to be our Thanksgiving special.
Yay.
Anyway, we're going to have Andrea Keller. She is a previous winner of the Texas Computer Education Agency Classroom Teacher of the Year Award.
Somebody needs to get a hold of these people, these naming of these awards. It's shorter people.
Shorter people. We don't care how tall you are. We will talk to her, though, about connected classrooms, along with some of the other stuff that she's up to. She has her... I lost my train of thought there, but her big thing is the Busy Bee. She's a busy bee.
The Busy Bee.
So, yes, all kinds of cool stuff going on there. And then in December 16th, which I guess would be our Christmas show.
Yay.
Well, maybe not. What's the next week? I don't know. Anyway, on December 16th, we're going to have Dave Burgess, and he is the founder of the Teach Like a Pirate movement.
Yarr.
So, we've got a whole slew of guests lined up for future shows. As Jeff mentioned earlier, if you're in the realm of education, technology, educational technology, technology integration.
Tech and education.
There you go. Any combination you can come up with. If technology and education is your bag, by all means, hop out to EduTechGuys.com. Scroll to the bottom there. There's a form to fill out, and let us know that you'd be interested in coming on the show. We'd love to hear from you and get a chance to talk to you on the show and let folks know what you're doing, what you're up to, what your specialty is. You can also reach us directly. I am at David in Arc on Twitter, and Jeff is at J Madlock on Twitter. Greg is basically not on Twitter.
Unobtainium.
So, but yeah, lots of cool guests coming up here on EduTech Guys Radio.
You know, I like to finish every show with a little Google tip. And Greg's going to bring us one today. Greg,
just as we offhandedly mentioned earlier with reverse image search, I'm willing to wager that most teachers probably don't know about reverse image search. And what it is if you have an image that you want to find either other examples of it, maybe a larger size, maybe something related to that image, you can actually just go to Google's website and then go to the image tab and drag an image into the search box. And then you hit enter, and it searches for all images related to that image based on what it looks like, not based on what it's titled or anything along those lines, which is super, super handy so often. Especially if you're looking for something related to clip art or something along those lines, you want a little something to add to your presentation, but maybe what you have isn't exactly right. So, yeah, that's super, super handy.
And I'll give you an example of a classroom use for that. Now, this happened to be on Facebook, but it was from a teacher. He had taken an image and colorized it. And then he posted that image on Facebook and said, who is this and what's wrong with my colorization? And so people were trying to guess, and I was like, this is ridiculous. So I saved the image, did a reverse image search so that I could find out who it was, because it was an image that already existed.
Right.
We found out who it was, and then from there, once people knew who it was, and again, you had to do some research to figuring out, okay, so what was wrong with the colorization, and it had to do with the color of the cuffs or something. I don't know. It got way deep, way fast, and I was like, I found out who it was, but I used Google Image. I used the reverse image search in order to find out who he was.
To win.
Right.
I didn't win because I didn't get it all.
Pumpkin eater.
Hey, I used the resources available to me.
There you go.
Hey, I just posted the link to Google's help document, support document on reverse search on Twitter. So if you want to take a look at it, I want to thank Greg for talking about that.
And did you want to talk about the Google Translate too?
Yeah, bonus.
Yeah, Google Translate. The app is beautiful. It just was updated this morning. It added Arabic to the actual picture stuff. So Google Translate, the app will let you speak in and will translate from your text with your microphone from your device. Cool. It will let you type in and translate. And with its camera on board, you can actually point it at any text, any printed text, any text it looks like, as long as it can read it, and it will take that image instantly and translate it into a language. Not all languages are supported, but there are hundreds, probably, well, not hundreds, but dozens. Yeah. But it is reverse. So if you're in a foreign country and there's a sign on the road, you can actually open it up, point it at the sign, and it will translate.
Preferably after you've pulled over.
Yeah. Sticking out of the top. You can drive with your feet.
I can do it with my shoes on.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. Next week's going to be a really exciting show. We're moving into Christmas. It's the holiday season. Next week on the show, we'll do a little featured Christmas music. Lots of artists I know and stuff. We can get that music going. I told you, it's not time yet.
Oh, man. Tartar sauce.
Hey, I'm Jeff Madlock.
I'm Greg Moore.
I'm David Henderson.
Oh,
did you want what?
No.
What?
What?
There was one more thing I thought we should talk about.
Oh, okay. Psych, we're not going anywhere, folks. Aha, tricked you.
No, never mind.
What?
Well, now you brought it up.
Well,
you can't leave everybody
hanging.
I'm going to leave everybody hanging. Hey, we'll see you next week. This is Jeff.
This is Dave, confused.
Pretty sure this is Greg.
Aloha.
You've been listening to EduTechGuys Radio, radio.edutechguys.com.
The opinions expressed on the site and its programs are those of participants and not intended to and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any specific educational entity, sponsor, company, state, or government agency.